Hello, welcome back. This is going to be video tutorial number 6 and for the computer imaging and design class. We're going to work our way down the toolbar some more here and continue away from the clone tool, which we did last time. And we're going to work on some of these other things like the gradient tool and the type tool and maybe some eraser tool as well. And we'll leave the pen tool, I think, for its own time. So before I start on this picture, I've got a picture open in Photoshop here. I'm going to make sure my layer is unlocked so it's no longer a background layer. And I'm going to start working on this picture. What I would like to do is come down my toolbar here. We're going to skip this tool, which is the history brush tool. The clone stamp tool above it was the one we worked with last time to copy the finger. And then we have an eraser tool down here too. The eraser tool sometimes can be used in interesting ways differently than what you might assume an eraser might be used for. So for instance, let's say I select our eraser tool here and we've got things set up here on the top which are linked to the tool, which are, for instance, your brush tools and things like that. Let's assume that maybe we take a brush tool or an eraser tool and make a really big brush that's going to be like this big. Okay, and I'm going to zoom out of this a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. And sometimes this tool can be used to erase big sections of things because you can erase in a feathered fashion using a feathered tool. So I'm using this feathered tool to do some erasing. And so if I take that eraser tool, come over here, and I start to erase, I can erase in a way that is going to erase a lot of this picture, but give me kind of a silhouetted or, you know, a kind of a cool view of that. Go to my history menu and go back a little bit to the beginning. So let's say that we're going to be using the eraser tool to erase a big section of this, maybe, oops. There we go. Oh, it's painting rather than erasing. That's okay. No big deal. We'll select the eraser tool, select what we want. We probably have the tool set here in a different way. We'll go to our layers. Release my background again and see, okay, now it's erasing. Okay, so by the way, whenever you see this gradient background or this checkerboard background, that just means that it's transparent. And so let's say we erase around here, give this an effect like that, and it gives you kind of a blurred effect like that. Okay, so that's one way you could use this gradient tool. Or I'm sorry, this eraser tool that's different than what you think it might be. I'm going to go back to history again and go back up to the top, go back to layers and unlock this again to start from the beginning. Of course, you could also use it to actually erase things. So if you have a selection that includes things that you don't want, like for instance, we make a selection around this chair. Here, I'll use the marquee tool. And we make a selection around the chair, and then we go up to select inverse, so it selects the background now, and we delete that. And let's say we want to just get this chair selected, or we want to erase some things around it. I could zoom in onto that chair and get it in my work area and start to erase with the eraser tool around it. But then if I really wanted to do it in a way that was a little bit more specific, use a harder brush, make it smaller, and really come in and try to erase things around this really specifically. If I really wanted to get detailed about it and I had little bits of pixels that I needed to erase, I could really zoom in on that like this and go to my eraser tool and get really precise about how this was going to happen and take it down to just individual pixels being removed so that I could then erase what I needed to erase and try to get things separated from their backgrounds. Okay? So some uses of the eraser tool. I'm going to go back in history and go all the way back up to the top of my picture again, get back to where I started, and start over again. Okay, under the eraser tool you have something called a gradient tool. And the gradient tool is a cool tool because it will let you create big gradients. So let's say, for instance, in this picture I wanted to make it look like there was more shadow down here at the bottom under these chairs. I could make a new layer, say OK. This is going to be on top of this existing picture. I'm going to move this over so it can be seen a little bit better. And so what we want to try and do is make some black down here, or some gray. As I select my gradient tool, I have all these settings up here at the top are all different kinds of gradients. If I select this arrow, it gives me things like this. And I see this one is black to transparent. There are all these different choices. You could also make custom ones and create them and put them in here as individual pieces that you could reuse. But for right now, we're just going to use this gray to transparent background. And then I'm going to move over to my image and click and drag. So what I did was created a gradient that is black that gradates to transparent. So by clicking and dragging, I'm creating that effect. Okay, and now I'm doing it also on its own layer because I don't really want to have layer 1 messed up by that. So by clicking on layer 1, or layer 0, I'm sorry, I can click and drag, and I've got my gradient there. And now it highlights this part of the picture a little bit more because this part's in shadow. I could also, since it's on its own layer, control how dark or light that is by sliding it side to side. So here I'm making that gradient look just a little bit darker or a little bit lighter in order to achieve the effect that I want. So I've put a gradient on top of an existing picture. Now gradients can also be used in a very dramatic ways, other than just complementing pictures like that. If I wanted to, for instance, put a major gradient over this, I'm trying to move it over so you can see the picture here, and say take the gradient tool and select one of these other gradients, like let's say this one like this, and go to my layered. Okay, not letting me do it. I'm going to make a new layer and see if that makes a difference, and it does. So I've got that, and a new layer made. Click and drag in the direction I want the layer to go, or the gradient, and now I've got a gradient here. Now don't forget that's just on its own layer. If I change the opacity of it, it could be brought down like that, and now I've got a gradient on top of a picture where the opacity has been changed so that I can see through it. Okay. There are all different types of gradients to choose from. There's a radial one, there's a diamond one, there's this inverted one. Let's do another funky one here that uses this and kind of goes from here out. And we've got that. And then say we change the opacity of that, so now we can see that as a highlight in the picture, which is kind of cool. Okay, so I actually kind of like that. I'm going to delete some of these other layers right now, bring them down, bring this layer 1 down and throw it into the trash can, and we'll move on to the type tool. We're going to skip 2 or 3 tools here. These are tools called the dodge and burn tool. They are named after methods used in traditional printmaking that have to do with dodging or burning light. So we're going to skip those and go down to the horizontal type tool. Okay, so if I click on this, I see I've got lots of different things that I can use. different versions of the type tool. I'll click on the type tool that's just a normal type tool, and I'm going to just type onto this picture. So if I move over here and I click type in some words or letters, now I've got that to move around any way that I would like to. Over in the layer menu, you'll see something new that we haven't seen before, which is a layer that has a T in it. That means it's a type layer. So as I click and drag this around, it can be retyped into by going to the layer like this and deleting it. Say I misspelled something, or I wanted to put other things in. I can edit that type as long as it's a T layer. If it's not a T layer, then you're going to have to make selections around it and make it happen in a way that would be as if this type was not type. It would be as if it was a picture. The cool thing about this is that I could do this in two ways. So I could, yes, select my layer, select this, choose a different color up here at the top. I could choose a different size if I put in a larger size, and it still acts like type, and should change it, right? But I can also do this or manipulate this as if it was a layer. So just like a normal transformation, I can move it around. I can go to my edit transform, and I could scale this, and it's going to react just like any other set of pixels would. And I could make it as big as I'd like. I can also work on the transparency of it, right? And I can do all kinds of things with it, move it around, place it. I can even duplicate this if I'd like to go into my duplicate layer and the layers menu. And now I've got two of them, okay? And this is a really powerful thing to use with this program, the way that type interacts with images. So one last thing about the type tool that I'd like to show you is that you can create some effects. So if I double click on this fall copy layer, it gives me a menu that comes up like this. And as I try different things, let's see if I can move this out of the way enough for you to see it. There it's putting a stroke around it. It's putting an inner glow on there. And you can try different things and see what works best. Here's an outer glow. I don't like that. Let's turn that. Bevel and emboss. Stroke. Okay. Drop shadow. And give that type some interesting things. And as I do that, my layers show me all the things that I've done. So here's all the things that I've done. I can undo them or take them off at any time that I'd like to. So I created some effects on that type by just double clicking on the type layer. And you won't get that effect if you just type on a regular layer. Oh, I guess you do. Oh no, you get different things. You get a layer style thing that comes up, but it'll treat your layer differently. Okay, so those are a few things to think about with the type tool. When you go over to the type tool, you'll also notice there's a vertical type tool that'll let you type things in that go the opposite direction. Oop. I connected it to the other one, which I don't want to do because I want to make a new layer. And now I can type down like that. Delete what I want, and now it's typing in an upward direction. Okay. All right. There's some things to do with type, some things that have to do with gradients, and some things with the eraser tool. This has been video number 6. Thanks for watching.